crunched underfoot. "Not that I care, you understand." He chuckled again. "I make it a point not to care." She saw his right hand and gasped. Clawed fingers sank into her hair and gave a ruthless yank. A knife blade gleamed. For a moment, so did his eyes. The fog ripped apart, a curtain snatched to one side. She spied the petunias again, their deep red color a perfect match for the blood that spilled from her throat onto her desperate fingers. Those pretty hanging heads watched her slide to the ground. They were the last thing her terrified eyes took in. Except... Just one glass of wine, Mia thought. Merlot, partly because she was in the mood for plums, but mostly because the undisputed expert at her club had given her a bottle of 1965 from his personal cellar. The gift told her plainly he wanted a raise. Anticipating him, she'd authorized a 15% salary hike that very afternoon. A wine connoisseur who did double duty as her assistant and excelled in both areas was simply too valuable to lose. She took the carpeted back stairs to the second floor of her sexy French Quarter lounge. The Rose Noire had what she called layers. Mia had backlit over 20 subtle alcoves and niches, created atmosphere with lush plants, to die for seating, and tossed in enough scented shadows to make her Creole aunts weep. Mellow jazz trailed her up the staircase. Mia wore black because it suited her, but disliking its severity, she dressed it up with scarlet nail polish, red lip gloss, and a pair of ruby red earrings that peeked out from the long, straight sweep of her dark hair. Razor-cut bangs, also long, framed eyes the color of a Caribbean mist and highlighted the slashing cheekbones she'd inherited from her bayou-born grandmother. The Rose Noire lounge, together with the Midnight Moon tea room next door, had been her grandmother's vision. The dream, not quite realized in her lifetime, had been dismissed by her daughter and only child. Mia's mother had married young to escape the swamp, produced a child of her own to seal the deal, put 7 years of half-hearted effort into a loveless marriage, and then traded her husband and daughter in for a lesbian affair that had drawn her cross-country from New Orleans to San Francisco. Mia had no idea where she was now, and frankly, no longer cared. Her father and grandmother had raised her. Although they died several years ago, she still had 5 aunts, her French Quarter club, her tea room, and, currently, a glass of vintage Merlot in her hand. Life could be a great deal worse. She spotted the fog the moment she entered her office. Pleased, she left the overheads off. A mauve bulb burned soft and low on a balcony that invited her to sip her wine in a cocoon of relative silence. Opening the double French doors, she stood for a moment absorbing the night. It was like stepping into a film noir, a black and white world with a punch of red, courtesy of the petunias she'd coaxed from seedlings into a riot of beautiful summer blossoms. Pleased with a green thumb she hadn't realized she possessed, Mia took a savoring drink. Because the air smelled delicious, she slipped off her stilettos and gave her hair a liberating toss. Then she caught a muffled thud and lowered her gaze to the alley. Time froze. The scene below condensed. A single black and white frame separated itself from the rest of the film. Nothing and no one moved. Until she blinked. Finally, slowly, the clock began to tick once again. She saw blood, a fountain of it, pouring from an old woman's throat. She spied the terror stamped on the woman's face. She glimpsed a hand, a man's. One of his fingers was missing. Her shocked mind realized so was most of his face. No, not missing. Covered. Invisible in the darkness of the alley. He had a black cap pulled low over his forehead and a black scarf tied around his nose and mouth. But his eyes, now those were clearly visible. Deep gold and exquisitely shaped. They sharpened to a